We've got some more big information when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 because now that the system is out in the wild, more information is not only being updated by people out there, but also Nintendo's talking about a lot of stuff with this system, and we've got a full revamp to the Nintendo Switch mobile app that's going to add a ton of useful features to the Nintendo Switch 2 to better group up, link up with your friends, and share media and different things on the system. So let's go ahead and jump right into this update for the Nintendo Switch mobile app for the Nintendo Switch 2, the features. So shout outs to Wario64 for rounding up everything here. So with this new Nintendo Switch mobile app update, you can import screenshots and videos from the Nintendo Switch 2, including automatic uploads up to 100 files and stored for 30 days. You also have notifications for game chat invites, friends online, friend requests as well. You can add friends via friend code / QR code on the app, and friend status and play history activity is also on there as well. So this is definitely a good thing overall for the Nintendo Switch mobile app. And the reason why I say that is because this gets it pretty much, I wouldn't say on par, but it gets it more up to date with what Microsoft and Sony are doing with their own apps, because the PS app, which I use all the time, is very good for being able to automatically get your uploads or screenshots or different things, or even see who's online if they're sending you a message or something, because we're not always on our system when our friends are on their systems, but your friends might want to play a game against you at some point or let you know, and you can see all that, and you're probably going to have your phone on you or around you most of the time. So you're going to be able to see that right there and say, oh, okay, somebody has a game chat invite or somebody wants to play a game or anything like that, and then you can hop onto your system and play. Now, of course, all of this stuff is actually included on the Nintendo Switch 2 system itself. You'll get notifications on there. You'll obviously get your game chat invites. You'll see your friends and all that type of stuff. So all that's there. But the reason why I mention that is because there's people in the comment section on Wario64's post saying Nintendo's behind because all of this is not on the system itself. I think that also goes to show you just how much people are negative when it comes to things, when all this stuff is already confirmed to already be on the system that Nintendo revealed in their various different videos, in addition to the Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct. So yeah, it is what it is on that. But yes, all this obviously is available on the system itself, and you also have it on the Nintendo Switch mobile app. So this is huge when it comes to being able to organize, play games, and overall just have a better experience that's more in line with some of the apps on the other platforms. So I know I'm going to be using this quite a bit when it comes to my brother and me when we want to play games, because he lives hundreds of miles away and we're not always going to be online at the same time overall. Sure, we can still text each other and stuff like that, but if you see a notification or something, it can pop up, get on your system, and play. So I do like that aspect of it, and it just shows that they're trying to actually get some of these other features integrated into the system, but also on the app as well. And this is one of the big things that I felt that Nintendo needed to improve when it comes to features and functionality of the system. I've been calling for these type of things since I think like the Wii or the Wii U. I know I've been calling for these type of things for a while, so it looks like we're finally going to get better integration overall, and this definitely beats out the Nintendo Switch 1 and pretty much the whole generation and what we had on that. Heck, you have the voice chat that was tied to the app and not even on the system itself, and that's completely changed. They did add notifications and other things through the life of the Nintendo Switch 1, but the functionality and how it works here with game chat and with game share and with everything else added, plus the Nintendo Switch mobile app at the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2 will make for a much better experience going forward, and of course a launching point to even add more features and more functionality as the Nintendo Switch life goes on as well. But also what I'd like to see go on is all the people who are not subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop, as we're dropping a ton of big Nintendo Switch 2 content leading up to the launch and of course afterwards. Now let's get into the next topic here, and we're going to discuss what is going on with the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges, because some cartridges are out in the wild and there's been a little bit of confusion on exactly which cartridge does what and how it's actually labeled. So shout outs to Nintendo for breaking this one down, because there's some interesting things that some cartridges can do for the Nintendo Switch 2, because it is a system that is backwards compatible with the Switch 1, physical and digital. So that brings a little interesting note here. So Nintendo posts, first look at the Nintendo Switch 2 edition game cart. this game card works for both the Switch 1 and Switch 2. Now, this is Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, and we knew about that. So essentially what he's saying here is that the LB code equals Switch 2 only, LN code equals works with Switch 1 and Switch 2. He also added that Nintendo Switch 2 game card comparison, and he says LB code Switch 2 only, LP code game key card, LN code works on Switch 1 and Switch 2. And you can see it by the letters on there followed by all of the other stuff on there. So it's very interesting when it comes to the LN code. That's the one that I really think is cool, because Guardians of Azuma is a very interesting thing. It's almost like a smart delivery game from the Xbox Series platform, but without actually having to download the Xbox Series version. It's just both on the cartridge, which is actually pretty cool and interesting technology overall, to be able to read it on both of them and boot the one that it is without an extra download like we've seen for like an upgrade or something like that. So definitely a good thing. I know public enemy number one is the game key cards, so the LP codes, but everything is pretty much labeled correctly on the box, in addition to on like the game key card stuff. So if you're looking at an upgraded type of game like Metroid Prime 4, or if you're looking at an actual Nintendo Switch 2 game that just has just the Switch 2 version, or if it's a game key card, all of that is labeled appropriately, and even on the cartridges you know which type of code or what type of game it is, even by that way too. But absolutely check out Nintendo when it comes to his guide on what's game key cards versus the regular cartridges and all that. There are some differences from the West and the Japanese games as well, but most of it is pretty much in line when it comes down to it. The only game that I think isn't is Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion, or at least one of the games that I know for sure is that in Japan that is a game key card, but in the West that is a full game cartridge. But we're getting new games announced. Obviously a lot of them are going to be game key cards, but all of Nintendo's first party games are going to be fully on the cartridge. So Mario Kart World, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and we just recently got Pokemon Legends ZA announced for this October. That's also fully on the cartridge as well. So very exciting times when it comes to what the games that we're going to be able to play on the Nintendo Switch 2. Obviously much better quality, looking pretty good. We've got the retail versions of Guardians of Azuma and how it actually looks and everything. So yeah, very excited. There's a reversible cover, I think, as well, but it also looks kind of weird. Depends on that. So hopefully they have some reversible covers for some people that don't like the text at the bottom of there. But if they don't, you can print out your own covers if you want. So there's also that option. But what do you guys think about this when it comes to Guardians of Azuma? Which it's interesting because the president of the American branch for the Guardians of Azuma developers, they actually talked about how it was a tough, difficult decision to do the full cartridge when it comes to Guardians of Azuma and Daemon X Machina, but they decided that would be the best bet for their fans, since they always do pretty lavish physical editions, and a lot of their fans do buy physical over digital. So I do give them props for sticking to that as well, and I think that if those games do well here in the West, like Daemon X Machina, and of course Guardians of Azuma, and Cyberpunk, and the games that do take advantage of it, I think we'll see more third-party developers actually take advantage of the full 64GB cartridge instead of going with the game key card. So it's really going to be dependent on how some of these third parties do with it. So we'll see about that. And of course, how some of these game key cards, if they sell really well, then obviously there might not be as much incentive for some companies, depending. But let's go ahead and move on to another massive bit of information here when it comes to Nintendo and their participation at the Summer Games Fest, which is very interesting. So the Summer Games Fest, hosted by Jeff Keighley, he's put up the partners for the show. The show is happening the same week Nintendo Switch 2 is launching. It's right there, June 6th, so it's like a day after Switch 2. Most people are going to be getting their Nintendo Switch 2 systems the day before, right? So if you're West Coast, or if you get an early unit, or whatever the case is. So it's going to be a super packed week that week, and Summer Games Fest says, we're proud to welcome a record-setting 60-plus partners for the hashtag Summer Games Fest 2025, a global celebration of video games in Los Angeles this June. And as you can see, there's PlayStation, there's Xbox, there's Square Enix, there's all sorts of great publishers and developers. Then right there, squeezed between Niantic and Nuverse, is Nintendo Switch 2. You also have Sega as well right around there, and that is definitely big news, because Nintendo usually doesn't take part in this, and we don't know exactly how Nintendo's taking part in this. Now, former Nintendo of America PR man, Mr. Kit Ellis, Kit and Krista podcast, had this to say about what Nintendo's involvement could be. Quote, "If I had to guess at what the Switch 2 logo here suggests, I think a Paul Rudd appearance would make sense. Reinforce the launch to a big audience, but save actual news for a direct later." And I think that's a very safe and good bet overall what Nintendo's going to do. Now, I will say this. I think that all of these other companies that are going to be there announcing games, they're going to involve the Nintendo Switch 2. This is a huge opportunity if you have a game coming out to talk about something, or if there is a new game announcement to talk about it with the Switch 2. Let's just face it, guys. This is not, hating or anything like that. But obviously, Microsoft is on its way out when it comes to consoles. Now, don't get me wrong. They're still going to have their Game Pass. They're still selling their games. They're going to be great when it comes to being a huge third-party publisher and everything. But system sales are atrocious, and developers need a new second-tier system outside of PlayStation and, of course, PC being a little bit of another thing as well. They need another console base that's going to pay for games as well, and the Nintendo Switch 2 is coming out at the perfect time for that. So I would expect Capcom and a lot of these other developers that are on here to be announcing or talking about Nintendo Switch 2 titles along with their PlayStation, Xbox, and PC games as well. So with this Summer Games Fest, this could be probably the biggest game. So with this Summer Games Fest in particular, because of the circumstances with the Nintendo Switch 2 launching, this could be probably the biggest Summer Games Fest that we've ever seen for games being announced for a Nintendo platform overall. So very excited to see what happens there, and I'm excited just overall to see if Summer Games Fest can actually be pretty good. I think that, I'm not so sure because obviously it's a Keighley show, but who knows what's going to happen here. Now, I don't think Nintendo is going to have a bunch of first-party games like Kit says here. They're going to have their Nintendo Direct, which is rumored to happen sometime in June or potentially even July, and the big announcements will definitely be there, but maybe they throw them a bone or two. But yeah, I would say reinforce that the system is launched or launched that week, and reinforce the big games and the features and what you can do. So I'd expect Nintendo to at least run a few ads during the show, and of course, third-party developers to have game announcements for the Nintendo Switch 2, because it's exciting to be able to play some of these other third-party games in a higher quality on a hybrid platform that takes advantage of what the system can do overall, like we've seen with Cyberpunk 2077. So what do you guys think about Nintendo showing up to Summer Games Fest and what we could potentially see from third-party partners there? Let me know in the comment section. But now we are going to move on to a very interesting thing, which I might have for a separate video. So shout out to my man V-Sips. He posted this on Twitter, and I thought that it was interesting. So he says that Walmart is preparing for Switch 2 by removing Xbox while keeping Switch 1. It's a great day to be a gamer. Well, definitely it's a great day to have a new system coming out and being excited about that. But it's interesting to see that. Yeah, it looks like they did definitely remove it, and whatever phone he has, it's a very nice quality phone because these pictures are very clear. So shout outs to V-Sips on that one, showing exactly what's going to be in this area. They taped some paper to it and showed exactly what's going to be there. You see the PlayStation area, then you see the Nintendo Switch 1 area, and then you see the area to where it is going to be for Nintendo Switch 2 overall. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be an Xbox area, but I'm pretty sure they'll take some of the Xbox accessories or the systems or something. But what I do want to know before I make a more bigger dedicated video on this, I want to know if more Walmarts are going to be doing this, or if it's just the Walmarts to where Xbox products maybe aren't selling as much, or maybe Microsoft has a different thing that they're going to be doing with their next generation system, probably coming out in the next year or so based off of what Microsoft has been saying. Or is it just their transition to, once again, a big third-party publisher to where they really don't feel like they need to have a big hardware presence overall in these stores and don't feel like paying for it in certain locations? So there could be a variety of reasons why things are the way that they are right now. But once again, this is just one Walmart. We'll have to wait and see. But let me know in the comment section, guys. Are you guys' Walmarts removing the Xbox sections at this point? Let me know, and if we can get more information on this, we'll see maybe what's happening going forward in the future. Last topic here, though, guys, we're going to discuss the brand new footage of Metroid Prime 4 called Silas Attack. So this was from one of the first trailers, or the first big trailer for the game, where you see Silas and you're not exactly sure what happens, but now they show a little bit more of it, and the game is looking better and better and better. Like, you see some of these other Federation soldiers getting clapped a little bit here, but Samus definitely seems like she's up to the challenge here. And I like the initial fight that's happening here and some of this strange stuff, but it does seem like maybe this is exactly how Samus does get her psychic ability powers at this point. Yeah, it definitely looks like something here, a Nova Blast that kind of takes everything down, and that's maybe how she gets those psychic powers that she does have. So very good. And if you have like a nice big OLED TV, oh man, it is going to be great. I know I have one, so I'm going to be playing it on there a lot. So what do you guys think about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, in addition to all the other big information that we went over with the Nintendo Switch 2? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.